Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report News Hour, 16th day of Changi, the 7th month and the 7th day by the heavenly calendar. Tim Hill was sitting in for the second king of Changi, Kyung Moon. And today, of course, is on the official church calendar. Today is the actual Chil Chol, which we celebrated along with Chil Ir Chol last Saturday. We celebrate the two. The king celebrates the two together in keeping with the tradition that the father began in 2011. Chilpire or 7-8, and sometimes there's a confusion. I think that the 7-8 ceremony is on the 8th day of the 7th month. No, it's on the 7th day of the 7th month. Because it's the 7th day of the 7th month when we had not one, not two, not three, not five or six, but 8 sevens coming together, right? Let's see if I can list them. Shall I do that? So father turned 77 in 1997. On the 7th day, the 7th month, and this is the 7 a.m., 7 minutes, and 7 seconds, eight sevens. And that was when, by the way, the precise second, because that is when the victory of the RFK blessing. RFK blessing. That's the RFK Stadium as a stadium. I think probably no longer exists in Washington, D.C. I think they tore it down, didn't they? Anyway, there was a blessing at the RFK Stadium, Robert F. Kennedy Stadium in Washington, D.C. And you'll have to look it up. I can't. Anyway, so that's why today, the 7th day of the 7th month, not tomorrow, the 8th day, but today, the 7th day of the 7th month, is the 7-8 or the 7-8 festival. So that would be the 29th 7-8 festival celebration. Okay. All right, let's go to our tour around the kingdom and see what is going on right now in Chungcheong, Tennessee, 49 degrees and clear. High of 81 today. Nice, with plenty of sunshine. Yeah, enjoy it. And tonight, partly cloudy and low of 55. And farthest hometown of Cheongju, North Pyongan Province in what is today North Korea, currently 77 degrees. 77 degrees. There you go. It's 77 degrees as farthest hometown. That's 10. That's 10. 10 sevens now. All right, mostly clear. And it's getting down to 69 tonight, humid with increasing amounts of clouds. Tomorrow, a couple of showers in the morning, otherwise cloudy and humid, high of 79. Yes, it's 11. All right, getting serious here. In Northeast Pennsylvania, at the Cheonrygung Palace, currently 54. Oh my goodness, I'm going crazy. 54 degrees at 154 Pond Drive. Okay. No, Father save us. 54 degrees and mostly cloudy. Today, a high of 72, variable clouds with a couple of showers in the early afternoon. Tonight, clear and cool, a low of 46. Okay. And then at the, oh my goodness, at the Liberty Rock RV Park and Campground in Limestone County, Texas, I kid you not, current temperature 78 degrees. We got sevens coming out of our ears on this chart. 78 degrees, variable clouds and a couple of showers and a thunderstorm. Humid, high of 96 today. But tonight, mostly cloudy, humid with widely separated thunderstorms and a low of, yes, 74. And at the Suncheon Palace in Korea, currently 81. Oh, I just missed it. 81, mostly clear, but tonight, mainly clear and uncomfortably humid, low of, yep, you got it, 74. Tomorrow, hot and humid with some sun, a thunderstorm in spots in the afternoon, and a high of 94. And at the palaces in Gunma, currently 89, partly cloudy. But hey, turning out clear tonight, warm and humid, low of, yes, you got it, 76. And tomorrow, sunny to partly cloudy and very hot. Caution advised if outside for extended periods of time, high of 99. And at Ilan, in Taiwan right now. Oh, okay, yeah, all right. It's 86 and clear right now, but then tonight, low of, you got it, 75. Yeah, we got sevens just coming all over the place. Okay, and then tomorrow hot with partial sunshine and a high of 96. Yes, praise God for all the sevens today on this cheer pie chart. Okay, and I've been going to Father's Word in the World Scripture, Volume 2. And let's today we're in also chapter 19. I think we were here yesterday too, weren't we? Chapter 19. This is a family and society. And so, okay, family and society. So just for those of you who are not familiar with this book compares the teachings of various religions by topic. And there's an introduction. Each section has an introduction, and then after the introduction, there are excerpts from the scriptures of various religions, and there are from the Bible, from Judaism, or Christianity. The Bible is counted as Christianity, and then from Judaism, and then from Buddhism. There are some from Hinduism. There's some Islam, Jainism. Also, there's I see sometimes quotations from African traditional religions. I saw a few from Zoroastrianism. We've so far in the Morning Hymn Bouquet with the King, we've read about 300 plus pages out of a total of looks like a little over 1,200 pages. Yes, so we're about a quarter of the way, roughly speaking, about a quarter of the way through the book. Anyway, I'm skipping ahead here because I'm on page 958 here. But anyway, and then after the quotations from each religion, then there's another section which it consists of quotations from Father's words on that particular topic. And here, this is a chapter on, as I said, family and society. And so, and here I see that there's let's see where are we here? There's a very long quotation here from Buddhism, from the Shigarobada Sutra. Okay, and then Father's words. So Father's words on family and society. The concept of family is something like the core of the universe. If we see heaven as the parent, then earth is the children, or parents, I guess, or children. I guess we can put it in plural in this case. When we examine the East and West, the East represents the man or the male, and the West represents the female. So, woman, when she marries, goes wherever the husband goes. The West receives the light of the sun and shines. And when it does, then it has the same value as the East. And the same is true with sibling relations. Centering on the first son, when 동생들이 협조하게 되는 것입니다. When the spirit works through the oldest son, centering on the oldest son, then the siblings, the younger siblings, also cooperate. Okay. Some people I've noticed in the past that some people are a little bit confused about the relationship between husband and wife. Some people, I know, among Blessed Central families, think that it is a vertical relationship, but it is not. The father is very clear that this is a horizontal relationship. But as he said here, the husband is the center, and here he gives the example of the wife is kind of like the west, and the sun rises from the east, and then shines on the west, and then when the west um, receives that sunlight, then it has equal value, or as the east is what he was what he is saying here. But anyway, the end result though is that when they are together, they have equal value. They have equal value. Okay. Yes. That may be a controversial statement for some, but I hope that you'll pray about it and think about it. Okay. All right, let's see. Let's go and see what is happening. And so it's been confirmed that Kim Jong-un is going to be in Beijing on, what is that going to be now? 1, 2, 3, next Wednesday, or at least next week. He's going to be in Beijing for the military parade marking the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II, the official end of World War II. So September 3rd is the day that the articles of surrender were signed by the Japanese on board the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. But most of Asia celebrates the end of World War II on August 15th, but China celebrates it on September 3rd. Interesting that they actually celebrated on the day that MacArthur came in and was there on the USS Missouri. Okay, and so let's take a look at this. The September 3rd parade in Beijing offers a rare opportunity for Kim Jong-un to appear in public alongside leaders from Russia and China. So here we kind of had the axis of evil coming together here. If they had Iran, then that would be complete. But anyway, yes, the Satan side is getting together. Yeah, Satan side is getting together here. And North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will attend a grand military parade in Beijing next week. The two countries announced on August 28th. That would be what? That would be yesterday. Okay. The event offers Kim a rare opportunity to appear in public alongside his Russian and Chinese counterparts. A total of 26 foreign heads of state and governments will attend the September 3 parade, marking the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. Hong Lei, China's Assistant Minister of Foreign Affairs, said at a briefing in Beijing. North Korea's state media KCNA has confirmed Kim's attendance, stating that his visit to Beijing was at the invitation of Chinese leader Xi Jinping. A formal treaty ally and major trading partner, China has hosted the North Korean Communist leader on multiple occasions in the past. Between 2018 and 19, Kim made 4 trips to China. His last visit was in January 2019, ahead of a summit with U.S. President Donald Trump. Trump expressed openness to restarting talks with Kim while hosting South Korean President Lee Jae-myung at the White House on August 25th. Leaders from major Western countries, including the United States, will be absent from the September 3rd parade, as they should be. Beijing's guest list features Russian President Vladimir Putin and Kim, as well as leaders from Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Mongolia. Other attendees include Iranian leader Masoud, include Iranian leader, Serbian president, Pakistani prime minister, I'm going to skip the names, Slovak prime minister is the only leader from the European Union, and NATO set to attend. The 70-minute parade is part of the events that Beijing said commemorate China's victory over Japan's invasion and the global fight against fascism. The CCP leader is slated to deliver a speech, according to the Chinese Foreign Ministry. I think many people in the West are not aware that Japan and China were at war. I think 1937 or 39, I can't remember now. Anyway, late 1930s, they were actually at war, and this is considered to be the second Sino-Japanese war. The first, of course, was won by Japan. That was back in 1894 and 95, I believe. And this was the one that lasted longest. Observers have criticized the commemoration as a distortion of history, pointing out that the Nationalist Party, which governed China at the time, led the fight against Japanese forces during the war. And yeah, this is true. The communists kind of held back and let the nationalists do the fighting against the Japanese. And then once the war was over, then they whoosh, restarted the Civil War and defeated the nationalists. And the nationalists who were weakened by the Japanese had to flee to Taiwan, is basically how the nationalist history is. Now, the nationalist government retreated to Taiwan after being defeated in the Chinese Civil War in 1949, while the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, started its one-party rule on the mainland and has since claimed self-rule to Taiwan as a part of its territory. Taiwan has banned all government officials from attending the parade and other September 3rd events, a measure deemed necessary to prevent the CCP from leveraging these events to advance its agenda and sow discord. Now, CCP has said that they have invited someone from Taiwan, but they didn't say who. And so it'd be interesting to see if anyone from Taiwan actually shows up on that day. If they do, then this will be somewhat controversial, I expect, controversial in Taiwan, and we'll see what the reaction will be. The city of Beijing increased security measures ahead of the first rehearsal for the parade on August 9th. Petitioners from various cities across the nation have reported being harassed by local police or being placed into detention facilities to avoid potential embarrassment for the CCP. Yeah, don't want to embarrass the CCP, do we, right? All right. Dorothy Lee is the reporter on this one. So, see, we got Putin and Kim Jong-un here with their bodyguards, I guess. It'd be interesting to see the three leaders on Wednesday and see what comes of that, right? All right, and then meanwhile, kind of to coincide with this, U.S. senators arrive in Taiwan amid tensions with China, and so I think this is timed specifically to coincide with both Trump's pressure on China, but also leading up to the September 3rd event in Beijing. Let's take a look at this. Senior members of the U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee arrived in Taiwan Friday, that's today, to reemphasize the partnership and security, friendship, and agreement between the countries at a time when both Taiwan and China seek to strike a trade deal with the United States. Republican Senator Roger Wicker, a vocal supporter of Taiwan in the U.S. Congress, is leading a congressional delegation to the region with stops in Hawaii, Guam, Palau, and the Philippines. We stand here to reemphasize the partnership and the security, friendship, and agreement that the United States has had with Taiwan for some decades, Wicker told reporters ahead of meetings with President Lai Ching-te and other government officials. The Republican senator vowed that the National Defense Authorization Act, this is the infamous NDAA, which is a law that it must be passed every year. If it's not passed, then the United States will not have a military. So it has to be passed, right? But because it has to be passed, they throw all sorts of junk into it, as we've seen in the past. That the NDAA, set to be considered in the U.S. Senate next week, would add to the provisions again when it came to Taiwan, but he stopped short of providing details. In a meeting with President Lai Ching-te, Wicker said the team was here to get a better idea of the island's needs. Both China and Taiwan are aiming to strike trade deals with the U.S. to offset U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs. Lai's government has already pledged an increase in defense spending, something Washington has been asking of several countries in trade negotiations. What's this? Looks like some sort of a autonomous drone boat or something. Looks like. Wicker told President Lai that they brought a message of long-term friendship. He reiterated that Taiwan has the right to preserve self-determination. The U.S. does not officially recognize Taiwan as a country, but has long been the island's largest arms supplier and security partner. So, yeah, the U.S. did recognize Taiwan as a country until the late 1970s. Maybe it was under Carter that changed. I'm not sure. right now. But right now, it does not recognize Taiwan. So the U.S. has a one China policy, and so that's been in place since the 1970s. But it's sort of, it does sell weapons to Taiwan, much to the consternation of Beijing. Their forces often hold military drills in a show of power to counter China. Beijing, which claims Taiwan as part of its own territory, has objected to Washington and Taipei's growing relations, often condemning visits and blaming the Western power for endangering peace on its territory. On Friday, the Chinese Foreign Ministry said it firmly opposes any official exchanges between the U.S. and Taiwan. The trip seems geared to manage growing concern in Taipei that Washington, under the new Trump administration, lacks willingness to defend the island if it were to be invaded. It would be kind of a dilemma, actually. Someone might ask, are you willing to sacrifice Los Angeles for the sake of Taipei? In other words, are you willing to risk a communist Chinese nuclear attack on Los Angeles or even New York or any other U.S. city in defense of the capital of Taiwan? So it could be a bit of a dicey situation, but of course the U.S. is maintaining strategic ambiguity, so that PRC has to guess as to what is actually going to happen. The visit falls just days ahead of Beijing's mass military parade to mark the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. Among those in attendance will be Russian President Putin and Kim Jong-un. Okay. And that's it. Okay, all right. And then here we have another story, more detailed coverage of the senator's remarks, but I think we already covered that as much as we need to. Okay. All right, so that's all that we have on China and Taiwan today. Let's go to this thing here. So Russia attacked Kyiv again, the Ukraine capital again, and killed 23 people and also damaged the European Union's headquarters there. So the European leaders are very upset about that. The head of the European Union's Executive Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has spoken of her outrage at Russia's deadliest onslaught on Kyiv since July, which also damaged the EU delegation's office in the Ukrainian capital. At least 23 people, including 4 children, were killed and dozens more wounded in the bombardment, Ukrainian officials said. I think this happened, anyway, within the last 24 hours. All but one of the dead were in a 5-story residential building that was destroyed. The EU's diplomatic mission and nearby British Council were hit in central Kyiv. In a strongly worded statement, von der Leyen said Russian missile struck close to the EU office. 2 missiles hit in a distance of 50 meters or 165 feet of the delegation within 20 seconds. So two missiles within 20 seconds. Ukrainian forces said Russia had fired almost 600 drones and more than 30 ballistic and cruise missiles, the biggest attack on the capital this month. 22 of the 23 killed were in the residential block targeted in the southeastern district of Kyiv's left bank, Ukraine's DSNS emergency service said. A missile tore through the block of flats at around 3 a.m., causing it to collapse. Diggers removed rubble and rescue workers clambered on top of smoldering parts of the building looking for survivors. Officials said 3 of the children killed were aged 2, 14, and 17. Several other youngsters were wounded. The overnight attacks followed a U.S.-led diplomatic offensive aimed at bringing an end to the war and infuriated the UK as well as the EU. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer accused Russia's Vladimir Putin of sabotaging hopes of peace, while EU foreign policy chief said they showed a deliberate choice to escalate and mock peace efforts. Moscow has chosen ballistics instead of the negotiating table, said Ukrainian President Zelensky, who reiterated the need for new tough sanctions on Russia. Although the Kremlin said Russia was still interested in negotiations, von der Leyen said the strikes were another grim reminder that Russia would stop at nothing to terrorize Ukraine, killing men, women, and children, and even targeting the EU. The U.S. Special Envoy on Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, said Russia's egregious attacks on residential areas threatened the peace that President Donald Trump was pursuing. German Chancellor Merz said Russia had shown its true face again, and the fact that the EU delegation had come under fire was an indication of the Kremlin's increasing brazenness. Okay. So these are the places that were targeted. An EU spokeswoman said no diplomatic mission should ever be targeted, and the Russian charge d'affaires in Brussels was being summoned in response to the attack. Russia's ambassador to the UK was summoned to the Foreign Office. Zelensky said the attack on Ukraine's cities and communities was a clear response from the Kremlin to everyone who had called for weeks and months for a ceasefire and for real diplomacy. The wave of missiles came after more than 100,000 Ukrainian homes were left without power by Russian drone attacks on energy infrastructure on Wednesday. Another 60,000 consumers were left without power in the central region in the latest attacks, officials said. Russian forces also struck a Ukrainian naval vessel, killing one member of the crew and wounding several others. The Russian Defense Ministry claimed it had used an unmanned speedboat to target the reconnaissance ship in the mouth of the river Danube, although Ukraine's military gave no details of where the attack took place. So this is the damage to the office of the EU. You see some windows were broken. Looks like some, what are these? Some sort of steel frames, I guess, or something. The desks appear to be intact. Okay. And these are, so this is a shelter, against some sort of shelter. Yeah, it looks like a underground train station, a subway station or something like that. I see tracks here, I see tracks here. So people are sort of in this place during the attack. The British Council, which fosters cultural relations with other countries and is housed in the same block as the EU's mission, said its office was severely damaged and would be closed to visitors until further notice. Ursula von der Leyen said the EU was preparing a 19th package of sanctions on Russia and announced that she would visit 7 EU member states who shared a border with Russia and its ally Belarus over the next few days. The Commission said she would travel to Latvia and Finland on Friday before going on to Estonia, Poland, Bulgaria, Lithuania, and Romania. President Trump had hoped to organize a summit involving Zelensky and Putin to bring an end to the war, but those efforts have since stalled. He first met Putin in Alaska before holding talks with Zelensky and European leaders in Washington. Ukraine's president has backed the move, but the Kremlin has played down any chance of a Putin-Zelensky summit. During the latest setback, U.S. officials will hold talks with despite the latest setback, U.S. officials will hold talks with the Ukrainian delegation in New York on Friday. Zelensky said they would discuss military, political, and economic components of security guarantees for Ukraine. Well, the security guarantees, of course, are something that would only come into effect after there is some sort of a peace, but that doesn't seem to be happening anytime soon. Ukraine is working with its European allies on guarantees aimed at preventing any future Russian attack in the event of a peace deal. Yeah, that's the important part, right? In the event of a peace deal. Zelensky had talks with Kiev this week with the heads of Britain's armed forces. Russia said it will not accept European troops on the ground and says discussing them without Moscow's involvement is a road to nowhere. It says here. Okay, so this is a part of Kiev that was affected by the attack, it says. All right. See, I think we had some sort of reaction from the U.S. Okay, let's see here. Okay, here we go. Okay. Times of India is carrying this. Well, let's take a look at this. Okay. Trump says he's not surprised, not happy, not surprised. And is this, yeah, this is August 29th. So this was 9:09 IST, and I think that's what's, anyway, that's a few hours ago. Let me bring this up for you. US President Donald Trump was not happy, but not surprised by Russia's latest missile and drone strikes on Kiev that killed at least 19. This is 19. We're looking for the one where 23 were killed. But it says, well, this is the most recent though. Okay, at least 19. All right. The Russia barrage hits residential apartment blocks, a European Union mission. Okay, so it is the same. And the British government cultural center and one of the largest attacks since the war began. Right. And Trump, who had pledged to end the Ukrainian conflict within 24 hours of taking office, has since acknowledged the situation is more complex than anticipated. The summit with President Putin earlier this month in Alaska failed to yield any breakthrough. Perhaps both sides, who's talking here? Levitt. Okay, so this is the White House spokesperson. Levitt said the president may issue further remarks on Kiev attack and reiterated Trump's stance on seeking a negotiated end to the war. Perhaps both sides of this war are not ready to end it themselves, she said. The president wants it to end, but the leaders of these two countries must want it to end as well. And Levitt also claimed Trump had worked harder than anyone to secure peace, echoing recent remarks from the administration pointing to diplomatic efforts. All right. I think, yeah, so I think this is a little bit more recent. I'm looking for something that came later than that. Okay, that's the same thing. All right, it's the same thing. All right, and it's kind of interesting to me to wonder, what are Putin? So in Beijing next week, we're going to have Putin, we're going to have Xi Jinping, and we're going to have Kim Jong-un. So basically, the three leaders who are involved in the Ukraine war, on Russia's side. So it'd be interesting to sort of be a fly on the wall, wouldn't it, to hear what they say? And I just wonder especially what Xi Jinping is going to say. Is he going to put pressure on Russia to end this? And what about Kim Jong-un? Kim Jong-un recently received the bodies of North Korean soldiers who had died in Ukraine. And I think maybe that kind of may have brought home that whole sort of war situation when he sees his own soldiers dying and realizing that these were soldiers that he had expected to be able to use against South Korea at some point, but instead they've died thousands of miles away in some war that has absolutely nothing to do with North Korea. And then he also welcomed back the generals and the other senior officers who were there in Ukraine, and he embraced them, a very emotional embrace. course, I think a lot of people, more and more people are realizing that Kim Jong-un is not actually the brains behind the North Korean regime now, that it's actually his younger sister, Kim Yo-jong. And she is certainly much more ruthless than he is. He has shown tears. Kim Jong-un has shown tears a number of times now, and sort of, he's his job apparently is to show the sort of the magnanimous and the loving leader, right? The loving leader who sort of weeps, and then Kim Yo Jong is the one that you say off with your head. um, but we'll have to see what kind of conversation, what comes out of this meeting among the three uh, leaders in Beijing. I'm sure they will have some sort of a meeting in private about the war, or at least a meeting where the war will come up. And uh, China may say, hey, you know what? We don't know how long we can support you on this. North Korea may say, you know what, we've supported you, but we'll continue to give you ammunition, but it's not so cool that our soldiers are getting killed in this war that has essentially nothing to do with our country. So we'll see. It'd be great if something could be done at that meeting, and who knows what will happen there. But you know who else is going to be present there? God is going to be present. True Father is going to be present in whatever meeting they have, and we will have to see what he's able to do. Right? All right. Let's look at this. This is an interesting story. So, in democracies around the world, this kind of thing happens from time to time, where things kind of heated, and I saw it in Japan, not recently, but it used to happen in Japan. It used to happen in Taiwan a lot. I think it still does. It still happens in Taiwan from time to time. U.S., I think, also maybe has had a few brawls in the Congress during our 250-year history. So it's not something that is unique to Mexico by a long shot. But it is interesting to me that there are arguments on both sides of this issue. I would have thought that Mexico would have been united in opposing any kind of U.S. military intervention to fight drug cartels, but apparently that's not the case. So the first part of this story goes through the blow by blow, which I'm not so interested in. So let's go to see what caused this. The scuffle followed a tense debate during which the governing Morena party and its allies accused the opposition PRI and PAN parties of calling for U.S. military intervention in Mexico, a claim that both parties denied. Earlier this week, a senator from the PAN party had gone on Fox News and said that, quote, help from the United States to fight the cartels in Mexico is absolutely welcome, unquote. Well, help can mean many things. It can mean money. It can mean intelligence, surveillance and stuff like that. It doesn't necessarily mean troops on the ground, does it? The issue has become particularly contentious in Mexico after Donald Trump reportedly authorized the use of military force targeting drug cartels deemed terrorist organizations in Latin American countries. The Senate leader said he would call an emergency session on Friday and propose expelling Moreno and 3 other PRI lawmakers as a result of the scuffle. Oh, come on, this kind of, yeah. And this other guy also posted on X that he had filed a criminal complaint against Moreno. In a statement on X, Moreno accused the governing party of changing the order of the day at the last minute in order to silence the opposition. Okay. Across the planet, decades of progress towards a healthier planet. Oh, wait. That's nothing to do with the. I'm sorry. That's nothing to do with this story. Okay. Okay. All right. So yeah, it's interesting that there are some people who not want U.S. troops on Mexican soil. It looks like that's maybe kind of someone's exaggeration of the situation, but they want U.S. help to fight the cartels. But I guess maybe the ruling party thinks that they can do it on their own, which I think has been proven false already. But anyway, we'll see how that develops. All righty then. Let's see what else is going on. Let's go to Newsmax. All right. And here it says that on Newsmax, big headlines. Just because I've got this. Okay, well, no wonder I've got 150%. As peace bid stalls, White House announces $825 million arms sale to Ukraine. Boy. So here we go again. Here we go again. So this is damaged cars from a jagged line, form a jagged line in front of a destroyed residential building after a Russian missile attack on Thursday. Trump announces $825 million arms sales to Ukraine. So I guess this is the additional reaction. Okay. The Trump administration approved a $825 million arms sales to Ukraine that will include extended range missiles and related equipment to boost its defensive capabilities as U.S. efforts to broker peace between Ukraine and Russia appear stalled. The State Department announced on Thursday that it had notified Congress of a sale of extended range attack munition missiles and navigation systems for Ukraine. The sale will cover 3,350 ERAM missiles, 3,350 GPS units, along with components, spare parts, and other accessories, as well as training and technical support. It said Ukraine would use funding from NATO allies Denmark and Netherlands and Norway, in addition to U.S. foreign military financing to pay for the equipment. This proposed sale will support the foreign policy and national security objectives of the United States by improving the security of a partner country that is a force for political stability and economic progress in Europe, the department said in a statement. Boy, looks like we're back into the Biden policy, aren't we? The sale was announced as Russia continues to step up attacks on Ukraine, even after President Donald Trump met with Russian Vladimir Putin in Alaska earlier this month to press for a negotiated settlement to the 3-year-old conflict. Well, now it's 3.5 and going and still going. Russia launched one of its most devastating assaults in Ukraine in recent months on Thursday, when waves of missiles and drones struck Kyiv, killing at least 21 people. I guess 23 is the most recent number I guess we have, including 4 children, and wounding nearly 50 more, according to multiple news reports. The massive barrage, which involved more than 600 projectiles, tore through all 10 districts of the capital, leaving residential buildings, EU diplomatic offices, and cultural institutions such as the British Council damaged. While Moscow claimed it had targeted military industrial sites, the strikes hit civilian areas and drew sharp condemnation from European leaders who summoned Russian envoys in protest. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency meeting in response, and Ukrainian President Zelensky called for stronger international sanctions, warning that the world's muted response was enabling further Russian aggression. The U.S. in July announced 2 other proposed weapon sales to Ukraine, one worth $322 million to enhance its air defense capabilities and provide armored combat vehicles, and another worth $330 million for air defense systems, as well as the maintenance, repair, and overhaul of self-propelled artillery vehicles. Okay, so this is a story written by the Associated Press. All right, well, I think President Trump is in a very difficult position right now. And he may be getting to that very difficult decision that I've been talking about. But we will see. We will see how he continues to respond to this. Well, let's hope, let's pray that somehow, that True Father can be there in Beijing on a Wednesday when the 3 men meet, Xi Jinping, Putin, and Kim Jong-un. Let's pray that God's Holy Spirit can be there and somehow get these men to change direction. I think that's what we can do in the short run. This cannot go on. And so it's 3.5 years now. America just came out of a 20-year war in Afghanistan, and we don't have soldiers on the ground, of course, in Ukraine in the way that we did in Afghanistan, but still, this is a war that should never have happened in the first place. It's a distraction from America's much more important mission, which is to focus on China and bring down the CCP. But let's hope that somehow, let's pray that somehow God can work through that meeting on Wednesday in Beijing to accomplish his will. All right, let's see here. CDC gets new acting head, right? Okay. Right, and economic aid, Norquist to leave White House for UN agency, right? U.S. won't take part in UN human rights review. Okay. Small parcels in limbo as tariff exemption winds down. Yeah, here in South Korea as well. The post office has announced that it's no longer accepting packages to the United States. Okay. And Trump to address UN General Assembly September 23rd. Well, this, UN General Assembly meets every year around this time, and member countries get to stand up and say what they want, and so all sorts of leaders come, and Fidel Castro took advantage of that in the past, and also who else? Anyway, some enemies of the United States have come, and because the U.S. is hosting the United Nations building at the headquarters, the U.S. is obliged to let these people in. So, for example, if Kim Jong-un wanted to come, the U.S. would have to allow him to come and have his say. So anyway, it's a process where they go on and on and on and give all sorts of crazy speeches. Let's see here. Trump teases GOP convention prior to midterms. That's an interesting thing. The convention basically is a pep rally, right? So that would make sense to have a convention prior to midterms, just sort of to get people fired up to work hard on the campaigns for the midterms. That's next year anyway. And Trump fires railroad regulator board member, right? And he's firing all sorts of people. Okay. And we have that shooting in Minnesota by a transgender man. In other words, a man who was pretending to be a woman. And the media, of course, is siding with the murderer. And pollsters are saying Trump approval high because he's delivering. Although I noticed that on Rasmussen, he's actually struggling. He's actually stagnating. I think right now, 50, 49, 48. It's flat actually. It's not improving. But here, some leftist pollsters say that he is improving. There's no question Trump's agenda is extremely popular. McLaughlin told Wake Up America on Thursday. Trump has a 52% job approval. One of the other interesting rating questions that we asked in there was 88% of Americans told us that crime is a serious problem. 88%, that's nearly 9 out of 10. You can't get 9 out of 10 Americans to agree on anything. Democrats are all worried about using certain words and going on the right programs and all that other kind of nonsense. But the biggest problem the Democrats have is their policies, McLaughlin said. Their policies are failing America especially in the inner cities, and we're seeing Donald Trump's successes on the economy on national security, and most of all, also in keeping American people safe. So McLaughlin said that the approval is 52%, but actually I checked Rasmussen a couple hours ago, and they have them at 48. And actually, it's in a flat to downward trend right now, not upward. So it's interesting to me that this leftist or Rhino, at least, is putting him at higher than Rasmussen, which I consider to be the most accurate. While JL Partners recorded close to 50% for Trump's approval rating, Johnson said the president is doing better on these approval ratings, and it's because he's owning those issues that matter to the American public, whether it's the economy, whether it's crime and immigration. No, of course, there are always vulnerabilities. He said there are concerns amongst voters about some of the portions of that big, beautiful bill. There are worries about inflation, but broadly speaking, he is doing very well compared to his first term and compared to other presidents at this point in time. Just to get back to the first question about why this difference, because there are other pollsters with him on 40%, even as low as 39, Johnson continued. They are the pollsters that only 9 months ago were telling us that former Vice President Kamala Harris was going to win. That's true. And, polls get the election wrong again and again and again and again. And yet, media always flock to the polls that put President Trump in the worst light. Why is that? These pollsters who have the lowest approval rating for Trump are also the ones who had the best rating for Harris. The simple answer is they're still getting too many Democrats in their sample when they call people up. Yeah. So this is the trick. You have to balance Democrats and Republicans in your sample. Let me just show you the Rasmussen. Rasmussen is the only one that does the daily polling now. These others don't do daily polling. And here you see poll for Thursday, 48% of likely U.S. voters approve of job performance, 58% disapprove, and include 33% who strongly approve, 41% who strongly disapprove. So this gives him an approval index rating of -8. Okay. And then if we look at the graph here, we see that actually sort of he's been sort of bumping around there. The low point is always 47, and he was at 47. He went up to 49. He got up as far as 50, and then on Thursday he's back down to 48. So it's hard to know. It's impossible to know, actually, at least for me, why these numbers fluctuate like this from day to day. But I guess anyway, we'll see. But usually Rasmussen gives him a higher favorability or support compared to other places, and so many people on the left criticize Rasmussen, saying that they're just always favoring the Republicans. But as you can see, right now they're actually less than McLaughlin and other places like that. Here's the strongly disapprove, and you can see that strongly disapprove is sort of flat, right? Or at least, and then he strongly approve right now 33, like that. So in the beginning, strongly approve was this is when he was inaugurated. Strongly approve was higher than disapprove, but that switched pretty quickly, and strongly disapprove has been higher ever since. But we'll see. As crime comes down, we'll see what happens. But the problem is, of course, is that voters are fickle, for one thing, and they're always asking, "What have you done for me lately?" They always say, but remember last year? Remember last year? No, I don't remember last year. I don't remember what you did last year. What have you done for me lately? And so when it comes to elections, basically, how the economy is doing, or how, let me rephrase that, how voters, not non-voters, right? We don't care about non-voters, how voters perceive the economy in September and October prior to an election. This is actually what pretty much determines the whole thing. So polls at this point do not actually mean a whole lot. They don't actually mean a whole lot. But it is interesting, though, kind of, we all like to look at lines that go up and down. So I guess the only reason to follow the polls right now. Anyway, we'll see what happens next year. And President Trump himself, he has pretty much figured out how things work in Washington. I think he figures that this year he can do pretty much anything he wants, right? And as long as things are better next year, because always the question that the opposition party will always ask is, are you better off today than you were 2 years ago or than you were 4 years ago? That's always the question they ask. And that's how they try to get voters to come over to their side. So we'll see how it works. But, democracy is very, yeah, I think Father's correct that democracy is not the best way to run a society. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see how that works out. Okay. All righty, let's see. Let's go back to Newsmax. See what else is going on just shall we spend some time with Epoch Times? Okay, let's do that. Let's give Epoch Times a say, although I think I already covered a couple of things from Epoch Times. So here, the guy who threw a sandwich at the federal agent, I don't care about that. Washington Mayor Bowser says crime has decreased since Trump's federal law enforcement surge. Okay. Kim there. And CCP's transnational repression against Falun Gong sparks new legislative response because, Epoch Times is, well, it's owned by the Falun Gong, so they cover the Falun Gong a lot. And here, the Senator Wicker, which we already covered. And let's see here. Trump signs executive order making federal architecture beautiful again. Okay, that's the Jefferson Memorial, I believe. Okay, Trump targets American flag burning with executive order. What to know? Already talked about that. It's probably not going to hold up in court. And okay, sale to Ukraine. We got that. Ukraine wants $1 billion per month from allies for U.S. weapons purchase, as Zelensky says. Okay, well, that's a lot of money. And let's see. Signs order to end collective bargaining with some unions and some federal agencies. Okay. All right. And the Minnesota Catholic school shooting. Terrible situation there. Okay. All right, that's about all we can pick up in there. Let's take a look at Newsmax. And here, what else do we have here? And Lisa Cook, of course, is the member of the Federal Reserve Board, and President Trump has fired her, but she's, of course, that situation is in court, as you would imagine. And on Friday, a federal judge is going to consider whether to block President Donald Trump temporarily from firing Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook while she pursues a lawsuit claiming Trump has no valid reason to remove her. So we'll see how that works out. That's going to be later today. All right. And she's accused of a fraud, of a financial fraud, right? And she apparently is not refuting that. Let's see here. Cook has been accused of misrepresenting two properties in Michigan and Georgia as her primary residences in 2021 to secure favorable mortgage terms. A lawsuit she filed Thursday. Okay, so, right. So we'll see what happens there. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And this Ackman, I think, is a famous bond trader, I believe, right? He's an investor at Feds. Cook should address allegations or resign. So she's not addressing the allegations. She's just addressing President Trump's authority to fire her. Billionaire hedge fund manager. Okay, so he's a hedge fund manager. Bill Ackman, right? Governor Cook should immediately put forth the facts to clear her name, or she should resign in the best interest of the integrity of our financial system, Ackman wrote in a post on X Wednesday. So people are always worried about the U.S. financial system. And before we go, let's just see how that financial system is doing this morning. Let's check the 10-year bond is actually, the rates are up actually, which means that demand is a bit down. Okay. But, very, very little though, I guess. At least I would consider about 2 basis points, 1.8 basis points. Okay. And the dollar is also up though, but still it's below 100. It's a 98.047. Okay. All right. So it looks like the financial system is intact, at least for now, and we will see how that goes. All right. Gotta go. I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, Saturday. That's all you. See you again tomorrow. Yes. God bless. Godspeed. Yes.